I don't know what it was like under Pedro. Apparently there was a lot of cones about the place, but nothing else happening. And I think Graham got the players on board. He got them on board, started picking up. I mean, we know what happened.
This is Ibrox.
Run away tonight, leave the city, we'll be fine. Blowing up like dynamite, I never meant to make you cry. Make your mind up.
Hello and welcome to your new weekly edition of This is Ibrox, the Rangers podcast. You're very welcome. Good evening, my name's Scott Paterson, and this week, joining me in the pod, as usual, Tommy McIntyre joins us. Hi Tommy, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, very welcome. And a really special guest. We're really pleased to say that this week we're joined by Jimmy Nicholl. Hi Jimmy, how are you doing?
Hi Scott, Tommy, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
No, not at all. Look forward to it.
So we should say this Ibrox, the podcast, is brought to you by Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for all your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. Contact them at your earliest convenience in 01453 887 179 or via the email hello@hhhmortgages.com. They're available on the World Wide Web, as you'd expect, www.hhhmortgages.com, and also available triplehmortgages.com on Facebook. If you are to speak to them, we recommend you mention either myself, Scott, or Tommy, or alternatively Willie, and the guys in there will look after you very well indeed. Tommy, we're into March now. Exciting month ahead, I think it's fair to say.
It is, absolutely. And personally, my highlight is how smooth you're slowly getting at that mortgages intro. Every week it gets better and better, to be honest. With you. But it is. I mean, I think we've got 19 days, 19 clear days to set the season alight. I feel like, within that 19 days, you could potentially land 55th League Championship for Scotland's Premier Club, and also potentially enter the quarterfinals of a European competition. I mean, the polar shift in power in this country when it comes to football clubs cannot be overstated. What this squad, this management group, this board, these investor sets have managed to achieve, and the fans have definitely got a hand in that as well. But what an exciting March. If someone would have said that to me, even in my more lucid moments at the start of the season, I might have thought, oh, that's maybe a little bit optimistic. But here we are, in testament to everybody involved at the club for getting us to this position. 19 days, and it could all be settled. And how nice that we end that run at 19 days at our great rivals' home.
Jimmy, as a former player and indeed a member of management staff, of course, I'm keen to know what your thoughts are for looking in from an environment and being involved in the club, now looking in as a supporter. How have you found it looking in this season?
Oh, night and day. Honest to God, lads. I mean, I didn't. I'm like Tommy. I didn't see the club being at this stage whenever I was there, to be honest with you. I mean, I was that excited to go in, don't get me wrong. I was at Falkirk at the time with Paul Hartley, and Paul had asked me to come in. I think it was only about 10 days, 2 weeks, whenever they were good enough, Falkirk, to let me go for the opportunity. And I thought this was going to be great, but then I seen things that I didn't like, so. And I look at it now and I turn around and think, it's completely different, the whole environment. I can imagine it being different. I haven't been at the training ground, I haven't seen it, but just what the producing on the park tells you what it must be like on a day-to-day basis going in the club every day.
Can I just ask just very quickly? Sorry, Scott, my apologies.
Okay, buddy, carry on.
Just on that, Jimmy, I'm quite interested in your point of view. You're desperate to join the club. Falkirk are really nice. Paul Hartley's really nice. They release you from your contract. You go in, and then the actual reality doesn't match up with the expectation. How disappointing was that?
It was disappointing in the sense that there was players about the place who weren't in love with the game. They weren't in love with the game. They didn't appreciate what was going on around them. Didn't appreciate the facilities. Didn't appreciate anything, in my opinion. So. And it took me 2 or 3 weeks in because I was very lucky. I went the very first day and met everybody, and the next day they were flying to Florida for the break. So it gave me an opportunity for 10 days to be in with the players and the staff, and it was great that way. I'm really excited. And then it was only when we came back You seen them training. You seen the ones that fancy training, the ones that didn't. And I thought, Jesus, this isn't right. This, But and the strange thing was, and Graham had them going again after Pedro, and he got them going, and they were doing well, and so it was surprising in that sense because they'll get everything there out in the plate for them, and someone didn't appreciate it, and that's why I'm saying from what I seen there to where they are now. I mean, I was out of my seat the other night sitting watching them. It's great that, but the bulk of the good ones are they're the ones I always knew that would come through.
Jimmy, I want to stick with you before we delve into the Antwerp game. Some bits and pieces on your two spells at the club. 1983, you signed with Rangers, part one of a two-parter, if you like. Explain to us and indeed the listeners how that move came about.
Well, I'd left Manchester United. I went to Toronto Blizzards and I'd signed a 3-year contract. And the season at Toronto was from about April till September, October. And then all the boys, they were getting paid all year round. So all the Toronto boys, they all go to Bermuda and go to on their holidays and all. But I had to keep playing for Northern Ireland, so I had to find myself a club in Britain.
Of course.
So I just wanted, whoever wanted me for 6 months could have me, basically, and I was sitting in the office. So the summer of 82, I went to Toronto. The 82-83 season, I went to Sunderland for 6 months with McCoist. And then I went back to Toronto, and then the following September, October, I went to Rangers for 6 months, and I was at Burnley, and I was sitting in John Bond's office at Burnley. I was supposed to go there, and the agent who set it up says, "Jimmy, there you go. There's I'll get you £300 a week." I said, "That's all right," because I was getting paid by Toronto. He said, "Their wages are £300 a week, 1983. I said, "That's all right." And then I go to meet John Bond. And John says, "Right, Jimmy, we've only got 6 months, but I hope you do well for us." And I says, "Great." He says, "Go and see the secretary." And I went to the secretary to sign the form. And the secretary at Burnley said to me, I'll never forget the Tuesday night, he said to me, "You must be some player." And I just, why? He says, "They're giving me £300 a week and £30,000 in a non-fee for 6 months." I said, "What are you talking about, £30,000 in non-fee? I'm only here for £300 a week." He says, "No, I've got to give you £30,000. I knew the agent was at it. I said, "You know what? See that contract? You can rip it up and stick it in the bin. I'm out of here." And I never even said cheerio to John Bond. I was out the door. And I was driving home to Manchester from Burnley. And next day I was so down, and the next day I got a phone call. It says, it was Ian Munro, ex-Rangers player. I played with Sunderland. I said, "Jimmy," he says, "Rangers got in touch with me to get your number to see, would you be interested in going to Rangers?" He says, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." I says, "I don't." I was up that road. I was in the Swallow Hotel on the Bellahouston Road on the Thursday night. And I signed for John Gregg on Thursday night.
Wow.
And I didn't train on Friday morning, and John resigned. And the kid, and John never even seen me train, never mind play. And
he went away with £30,000 as a signing on.
No, he made it, yeah. So I just wanted to come to Rangers. Listen, I knew about results and all that weren't great, but I didn't realise it was as bad as what it was, because there was only 10, 11, 12,000 people at Ibrox, and Aberdeen, Dundee United were winning everything. I think Rangers were sitting 5th. Celtic might have been 4th, even flipping 6th. We might have been 6th, they were 5th. And it was, but it didn't bother me. I just wanted to. And so that's how that came about. And Big Jack Wallace came 2 weeks later.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Big John McClelland was around at that point as well. How did that was that almost a familiar twang, if you like, to be there in and around the first team squad? Yeah.
Well, funny enough, I was brought up in Rathcoole, and John was White Abbey, so we lived near each other in Belfast anyway. So he went to Hopefield Secondary at the bottom of Rathcoole Estate, and I went to Rathcoole Secondary at the top. So I knew Big John in Northern Ireland, what have you. And so that was all right. But the best thing was Cooper. Big Jock came in at his meeting. How he was going to turn things around. And I came out the dressing room afterwards. He said, "Come on, we're going training." And Davy Cooper says, him and Bobby Russell was down there, forget it, in the corridor. And I says, "Oh, what about that? What about that? Was that great?" And Davy Cooper says, "Aye, the big man's quieter second time around." I said, "Well, he must have been mental the first time because I'm pumped to the eyeballs, mate." And we're only there 6 months, but and that was it basically. Whenever I had to go back to Toronto, then I thought that was my Rangers experience over. But thoroughly enjoyed it. Big won the League Cup, Coisty's hat trick, and he slowly turned things around. I'm saying turned things around. It's not right for me to say that because I didn't know what it was like under John before that. I knew the position in the league and crowds weren't great, but it was a memorable 6 months.
So if memory serves me right, sorry, Tommy.
So, thanks, Scott. I'm just going to bookend that by asking, was there any moves at the end of that 6 months before you went back to Toronto to try and keep you longer term?
I couldn't get out of Toronto one. I couldn't get out. I'd only been there a year and they're very strict that way. So, no, there's no way I was getting out of it. I just thought that's it. 6 months and then that'll be me and back, and that was the end of it. But I was very fortunate. What happened, and I've always been lucky, me, but I was very fortunate because the next time was on the plane coming back from Mexico, and I was the back of plane. Graham Souness was there. He says, "You've been to Rangers, Jimmy, haven't you?" I says, "Aye, 6 months. 6 months, loved it." He just went, "Right, okay." Never said nothing else. That was it. Because I was at West Bromwich Albion at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know Graham was going into Ibrox. I had no idea that was happening. And so I met him at the back of, and that was it. And that's where that came about.
So we'll come back to that later on. Hold that story. Tommy, I want to go back to last week. Rangers welcomed Antwerp to Ibrox for the second leg of what seemed to be I felt it was a bit of banana skin. I said to the guys last week that I felt that the Liège game previously, the last Belgian team we played at Ibrox were more of a challenge than what I think we thought they were going to be, and I worried that Antwerp were going to be the same. We started the game really, really well, I thought, and generally played very, very well. A couple of highlights for me. I didn't think Alfredo Morelos could have played almost better than he did in the first leg. By goodness, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was absolutely outstanding. You're absolutely right to reference that. I felt, I was a bit more sanguine about the fact that we put Royal Antwerp to bed in the second leg as well. Not a problem. But I think both legs were characterised by some moments of brilliance, but a lot of lapses in terms of concentration and discipline. Some of the goals we lost, there seemed, certainly in the first leg as well, there seemed like this feeling that anything that Antwerp were hitting was finding its way into the back of the net.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, and certainly in that second leg, I never felt that it would have to have been some monumental pieces of bad luck that would have overturned the fact that pound for pound in every department across the pitch we were better than them. And eventually that would tell. And such was the story at Ibrox. They got back on terms. There was a couple of lapses in defence. The one where Connor Goldson gets caught out is just an individual piece of brilliance by Rafailov, who was arguably one of the best players over the two legs, by
Absolutely,
the way.
100%. Excellent.
Coming to end his career, but an absolute dynamite player with the intelligence. But ultimately, we were never in trouble. And I'm not a big fan of that phrase, but I would have had to have taken a monumental series of blunders and wasted opportunities and chances for Rangers not to win through. It played out exactly how I think most of us thought it was going to.
The Morelos finish I thought was really clever, but kudos to Ryan Kent for chasing down the left back and force him into that error, and Morelos was able to tuck it away. I just thought it, I don't want to say instantly put the game to bed, but I think it gave us a comfort zone, almost like a pillow, if you like, to prevent us from getting any closer to us, Tommy, yeah?
It's all about nerves with these things, isn't it? Even when the fans aren't in the stadium, It's all about just putting that initial marker down. If Antwerp would have got the first goal in 9 minutes as opposed to us, then all of a sudden it's right, okay, we need to get get back on parity and start to, engineer ourselves back into this tie, because it does start to get in the back of your mind and away goals and all that good stuff. We scored 4 out there. We get an early one, and then it's a case of, right, how long do you need to manage this game? Yeah. And we were always on the front foot through both ties, and that's probably something that's been overlooked. Yes, there was mistakes and discipline, but I can't think of a point in time where we played defensively. We were pretty much on the front foot across both ties. You're right, getting the early goal straightens that down, and then Rangers, by and large, never really looked back. I mean, just to get back to your original question, because I don't think I actually naturally answered it, which I know listeners will be used to. Jimmy, maybe not so much when I'll go around the house. You're doing well to stay awake there, Jimmy, when I'm talking. But Morelos was unplayable, and it was nice and pretty cute at the end, where, whilst also giving him a wee tussle of the hair, so to speak, in terms of his performance, there was a wee intrinsic. It'd be nice to hear Jimmy's view of this, having been inside the game, from Steven Gerrard with, I know why Alfredo Morelos likes this tournament. It's the people who are watching it. Yeah. Which is fine, and if you want to engineer a move by performing on that stage, that's great. You also need to perform in your bread and butter league as well, week in, week out, and I think Alfredo prefers the midweek games, if you know what I mean.
Jimmy, I don't think there's any doubt that Morelos is savouring his better performances for the European games this season.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. What a difference in the man. I mean, over the 2 games, possibly the best player in the park in both games.
Yeah.
He's his best player. I know there's some good performances, I know that. But I'm talking about, because what we've seen in the past, there's always been, what about his temperament and what about his selfishness? And he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, but he pops up and scores goals. Is that the be-all and end-all? Yes. So it was his overall performance, everything. I really, really enjoyed him. That's the most I've enjoyed him. And I'm sitting looking at him and thinking that, the games, there's 13 goals you scored in them 3 games. 13 goals. I mean, they beat Dundee United in between at 4.
Yep.
And they scored 5. So there's 13 goals. And the 3 games before, Kilmarnock, 1-0. St Johnson, 1-0. Yep. Hamilton, 1 each. He only scored 3 goals without Morelos. Only scored 3 goals in the 3 games before them games. Now you've got 13. And the strange thing about that is he's only scored 1.
Aye.
He only scored the 1 goal in them 13 games. But the fact he was in the team, that was a turning point for me about looking at him as an all-round player.
So I'm glad you're bringing that up, because one of the things I instantly clocked in the first half, there was a couple of moments, Balogun was obviously starting at right back, and there was a couple of moments Morelos was actually dropping into what we've probably deem as Steve Davis territory and laying the ball off to the fullback and then bombing up the pitch. His game this season, well, I think we've spoke about it in the pod previously, Jimmy, how he's maybe not scoring as many goals, but his all-round game has unquestionably improved.
It's improved. It really has improved. And I'm like you, you turn around and say, well, if the centre forward if he's not quick, like Big Giroud last night playing for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're not quick, you got to come short and hold the ball up and bring midfielders into the game. I know that. But if you're quick, like Vardy, you don't have to do that. Now, he just plays off the shoulder with Vardy. He just there's no point in getting me getting involved in him. Now, why was Alfredo always coming the ball before? Is it up there he doesn't think he's quicker in the centre half? Is he thinking, I'm not fit enough?
Yeah.
I'm not quicker than him because I'm not fit enough? Is it because he's fit and he's sharp and he looks at that he can turn around and do both? If he has to come short and get involved. But if I have to play off the shoulder, I'll get away from the opponent. And is that because it's up there he knows now that I feel better because I'm fitter and I feel quicker? Maybe it is. I remember Mark Haley saying that about Ali McCoy.
Yeah.
When big Mark Haley came and said, because you have to lose a stone and a half. Look at the size, yeah. Now, you might score 30 goals a year, but, why don't you want to score 40? By being that wee bit sharper around the box. And maybe that's it. And his confidence just grown and grown.
So, Jimmy, I'm going to stick with you, because one of the things that I felt Morelos done last Thursday, he bullied their full-back line. Full-back, centre-half, full-back. As a former full-back yourself, how do you think you would have dealt with a player like Morelos sort of good old-fashioned in about you from the get-go for the duration of the 90 minutes? How do you deal with that?
Well, for a start, if you're a full-back and you're getting the ball off your centre-half and you open up your body to play a ball down the line and you know the centre-forward's coming this way and you knew you're going to get one, then it does put you off. It does put you off. You lose focus on where you're actually going to pass the ball. And he does that. Now, I'm going to say something about Rangers and Morelos, what have you. See, in my day, all I remember in Europe was Ali McCoy running from fullback to centre-half to fullback. All I can see is him just running and working hard to stop them and to unsettle them, just like what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
But whenever we had the ball, we never attacked like Rangers do. The worst feeling in the world is sitting in the dressing room as a defender and sitting thinking, I can't see us scoring a goal tonight. Or if we do score 1-0, we have to work hard for the rest of the game to keep it 1-0.
Yeah.
There's not this free flowing. And I watch Rangers now and turn around and say, if I can just do a job defensively, and they'll be disappointed they conceded the 5 goals against Antwerp. I know that. And they will look at themselves. But the sheer feeling, knowing that we're going to score goals. Look at all these boys getting Aribo and Kent and Hadji and Morales and fullbacks, and it's a great feeling as a defender that if I can just do a job at the back, we're going to score goals. And Rangers don't go about European games feeling as though we'll go with one front, we'll sit behind the ball, and hopefully get a wee break. They don't do that. They don't. It's as if Stephen Gerrard's, well, why don't have to do that? We don't want to do that. And I'm not just talking about the last 2 games. I'm talking about Benfica scoring goals all over the place. And, it's a great attitude that, and a great approach that.
Tommy, we go into half time and Balogun's nursing an injury. And I'm going to come right back on the call for this a little bit later after I've had your input. However, Nathan Paterson rises off the bench like he's never been away. And listen, I watched it here with my son, and it was an introduction like I don't think you would ever believe. 16 seconds in, and he scored his first goal for the club so soon after. You know what I mean? The faceless Twitter people are on giving him and his buddies stick, and you could argue till you're blue in the face whether that's right or wrong. It's probably not for this week's pod. However, that moment was really pivotal in the game, I felt, because it put us right on at the front foot for the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. It's boys' own stuff. I think I put in the This Is Ibrox WhatsApp group that it was a Hollywood moment, because it is. You've been in trouble, you're put on the bench, big European glamour night, you've never scored, 16 seconds in. By the way, that, as you say, much like the getting the first goal within 9 minutes, it resets the tempo.
Yeah.
I should say as well, before I forget, it'd be interesting if we can ever clarify if Ali McCoy's lost that 1.5 stone.
He did at the time. He's made up for it since.
we need to double check what happened to that, right? But in terms of that, it's boys' own. It's boys' own stuff. Boys' own. That sounds a little bit like saying boys' own there, to be honest with you. Boys' own. But it's Hollywood moment, and he comes off and he resets the narrative round about the second half. He resets the narrative about himself, with the fans as well, because we all know he's an asset and he's really, really highly thought of in the game. Nathan Paterson and at the club as somebody who can go on. And with Tavernier having some injury issues and Balogun having a pretty difficult first half as well, I think the lack of being a natural right back started to show in that half. And then 100%. Having these, I think the calf tweak or whatever. Then you need to be able to look at your squad, how great it is to point to a young Scottish lad who's been through the ranks and comes in and adds to his value. I mean, that's fantastic. We all want that. So hopefully they've learned their contrition. They've made a mistake. We all move on as a club and all that type of stuff. Great way to do it is to bang one in right at the start of the second half. And it did. I think to a large extent, it took I don't know about you guys, but I always felt that Antwerp had the wind taken out of their sails continually. And it was our lapses that put wind back in their sails.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until they were getting a lift off of us, as opposed to feeling that they could actually get it themselves. It was us kind of switching off a wee bit. I should just, because I'm really interested in Jimmy's view, and I know he'll give us it later, but it's quite interesting what you're talking about there about knowing if the striker's going to hit you. I was referencing last week on the pod that one of the things I really like about Alfredo Morelos is forgetting the goals and all that, as we're talking about. It's his ability to make defences and defenders think about him, and he pulls them all over the shop, and they come out into unnatural positions and they make unconscious mistakes because he's in their minds. It certainly sounds like he's that type of player. But yeah, back to Nathan Paterson. Aye, listen, long live that guy's scriptwriter.
Absolutely. Jimmy, I think it's there's been a lot of noise around Nathan Paterson for all the wrong reasons, by I'm sure his own admission. If anyone's seen the video, I think they would agree with that. It really was a fairy tale moment for him to come in and score so early, but I actually felt over the piece, I was quite impressed with his second half performance generally. Even if he hadn't scored, I thought he he put himself forward really well in that second half last week.
I was out my seat. I was out my seat. I thought, I can't believe it. And I'm looking at this young lad coming on thing, right? Just get a couple of touches in the centre half. Now, don't be going away up halfway in the opponent's half. Stand beside the centre half. Get a wee square ball. Just get a wee touch. Give it to Hadji. Give it to Kent. Just get a couple of wee touches and work your way in the game. Because everybody's looking at you. People think you shouldn't be on the park. And just settle into the game. He scores after 16 seconds. I was up out of my seat for him. Now, I know what people are saying. Well, I come this year and the Celtic boy, and I come to Aberdeen. We know that they're going to get their punishment, these lads. Yeah. They'll get their punishment when the SFA get around to it, or whoever it is deals with it. But for now, there was an opportunity for him to come on the park, and he took his opportunity. I tell you what, and it was great to see the relief on that lad's face whenever, because the pressure, I don't know the lad, but the pressure must have been, everybody's going to be looking at every pass, everything I do. So, and to come through the rest of the game the way he did. But you're right what you said about Rangers. Rangers' response in both games. When over in Antwerp, but Rangers' response to start the second half in Antwerp was great.
Yeah, it was.
When they get the penalty, it was a great response. And you're not going into the dressing room dejected after doing. And it was the same whenever one eats. You think, oh. And then, of all the things to have that young lad to score, great. But people were talking about there was still a threat, there was still a danger there, so there was. That's what I'm saying about goal scorers and quality players like you're talking about. The threat's still there, but that they've handled it, they've responded great, Rangers twice, going in the start of second half games.
The only thing I'd say, just to bookend that, and I not want to lead with a negative or anything like that, but defend the way we did against some of the higher opposition teams, and I think we'll find ourselves in a more difficult position because you can't switch off in some of those games. But I completely agree with Jimmy as well that it's really nice to see from Steven Gerrard, Rangers going to European games with absolutely zero inferiority complex.
Right.
Well, that's a point I was making about, we know they conceded the 5 goals, but the hardest thing is to score goals. And if you're a team that looks as though you're going to score goals, then the easiest thing to do is to sort yourself out defensively. Plus the fact you're not going to get many opportunities, as the tournament goes on. We know that, but they've got good enough strikers and players to deal with that.
Tommy, the best goal of the game, I would say, was the third goal. Clever ball by Glenn Kamara, and he fires it into Yanis Hadji, who at that split second, I would argue, does everything that we paid £4.5 million for him for. That wee half turn opens up the game entirely. Plays into Morelos, very clever knock round to the left back, and Ryan Kent's finish is excellent, doing that very, very clever and hard to do. If we're trying it in the back garden right now, albeit it's dark, we can't. But that ball coming across the front of you and scooping it in with your left foot, very difficult talent, but it was a great goal to get us that third goal.
Yeah, absolutely. For a brief second there, my mind went blank, and all I had in it was towards Kamara, and then 4.5 million, and I went, no, you've got your figures all wrong there. No, listen, for me, it was I think the goal of the tie.
Yeah.
For decisive nature that Jimmy was talking about. You pass into the full back, it goes back to centre back, and I know Kamara wasn't playing full back, but he's in near enough that position, gets it, whips a ball in. I know Mr. McCoy's, for example, in the commentary was enthusing about Hadji's turn, but it's Hadji's turn, so that's a great piece of play to open up and cut through the lines, tick. Then a great turn to take 2 players out the game because Hadji's ahead of them, and given he's not the quickest player, he's used his bodies and intelligence to make that space. Yeah. Plays it essentially first time. Next thing you know, you're about 30 yards out. Morelos, back to Jimmy's point again about fitness and being really focused and knowing what he can and can't do, stands up the defender, knocks it round him, gets in, and then looks up, plays it across, and Kent moves really quickly, and it's actually a really nice finish because you think he's going to take it with his right, and he actually just opens up his body and hits it with the left.
Yeah.
Incisive team goal. I mean, I hate the cliches, but if some of the more TV sexier teams, particularly in Spain, do that type of move, it's talked about forever. That is a European night against not a bad side, who just from our half of the pitch to theirs in the space of 3 passes have been ripped wide open and are staring at the ball in the back of their net. That's exactly the type of football you want to see anybody play, and it's great to see it from Rangers players, and not players that were massively sexy when they were picked up by the club. They've been moulded to be able to play this type of game, and that's something that the management team should take all the credit for as well.
Jimmy, we can't let the sort of European chat pass by without making comment on another thoroughly impressive performance by Stephen Davis.
Well, he's been doing it for years and years now, and again, the confidence that Rangers have going forward is possibly Steve Davis got a lot to do with it. Fullbacks can go. The 2 fullbacks can go, knowing that Steve Davis is going to sit there. And Ryan Jack, don't get me wrong, I'm only talking about Steve Davis because I watch Rangers for that reason. Not the only reason, but I keep an eye on him to see how he's doing, and very, very seldom I'll ever come away from a game and say, I don't know what was wrong with him today. I don't think. In fact, my last report into Ian Barclough, the manager in Northern Ireland, I said, you know what? Steve Davis was a man of match today. Forget what league game was. Do you know Steve Davis was a man of match today? And he never played one penetrating pass. And that's it. Everything else. Sometimes you get midfielders, they'll switch a ball 50, 60, 70 yards, and they'll look great. And they'll do a re-penetrating pass in the striker, the pass you're talking about Hadji and they'll do it. But Steve Davis didn't do it this particular game. But as for reading the game, reading danger, simple but effective passing, just everything, his all-round game was great. And for players to get forward knowing you got the security behind you, it's a great feeling. And he's just a quiet, inspirational lad. And I'm glad I'm with Northern Ireland and get the opportunity to work with him because I can see what he's like now, not just as player on the park.
Tommy, I asked you last week about Alan McGregor, and I'm going to put you on the spot again because I did ask you last week if you felt McGregor was better first time round and now, and we got a lot of sort of stuff about how he's matured as a player, etc.
I can see where you're going with this, and I'm not chuffed at all.
You're very welcome. Same question, Steve Davis. Better this time around or better previous first time around?
God. Well, your connection's breaking up. I think probably for the same reason. Well, it's actually an interesting one, right? So I'll play it back a little bit. I think that this Stephen Davis is better because I think he's better able to massively control games from a position of more experience, less. I'm not saying he's any more or less fit than he was first time, but time does take its toll. Doesn't naturally get us forward much as he used to, but he can completely dictate a game.
Yeah.
And then there's the weight of having a guy like that's experienced in the engine room and in the dressing room, keeping some of the younger people just focused on getting game after game after game. And yeah, that's probably why I say that he's this iteration, and dare I say it, it's an interesting one, right? But then you overlay the fact that a guy like that, when Steven Gerrard doesn't have tons of experience as a manager, that's not a criticism of Steven Gerrard, but previously Davis was here under Walter Smith, for example, as well, Cleach and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
And also maybe pound for pound working in more established teams.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one team's better than the other, I'm just saying...
That's fair.
That's a good point, Tommy. That's a good point, working under different managers. Because that's an indication of what the player's like and what the person's like. You look at Steve Davis at Southampton. I don't know what the number is, but Steve Davis probably went under 3 or 4 different managers. At Southampton, maybe more. And every one of the managers made him captain. Because they know right away the influence he has. Not demonstrative, but the influence he has, because he's a listener. And he helps people, and he takes messages to the management if needed be. And it's just one of them great sort of people to have about a dressing room.
Do you see that in Northern Ireland, Jimmy, in terms of that, players just looking to him?
Yeah. He's always at the front. I know it's a wee thing, but he's always at the front in the training. He just, the way he goes about things, the way he quietly goes about things, you can't tell me he's young Northern Ireland players. Listen, the young Northern Ireland players do. And some are overconfident and cocky, what they're like these days. But it's the senior players, even senior players at the same age, look up to him with great respect. And I'll tell you why. And one of the reasons, it always wasn't great for Michael O'Neill. I think Michael lost his first 14 games or something.
Yeah.
But they were going away and playing friendlies and all over the world. And people were dropping like flies because they didn't want to be associated with their country, and they didn't want to go halfway around the world to get gubbed. But Steve Davis was always there. He was always there. Never missed a Northern Ireland trip. That's not to get 120 caps for Northern Ireland. That's your love of football. And that's your love of your country. And that's you wanting to make things better. That's what he's like. And I organise all this for the staff. I organise all the nights out after games for the clubs and we're in Czechoslovakia. We're in and I got it all organised for the Northern Ireland staff. And we walked in, and who's there? All the Northern Ireland players. Steve Davis had organised the same place. But his was a wee bit more than mine. I got about 10 quid each for a kitty. He had the whole place roped off with big barrels and buckets of Budweiser and Grey Goose, whatever you call it. The place was all roped off. I've got a tenner a head kitty with the staff.
Couple of pints and a packet of salt and vinegar crisp. Sit in the corner and keep quiet.
Bottle of cheap Czech beer.
Oh dear, brilliant. Listen, Jimmy, I'm going to come back to you because before we started to speak about the Antwerp game, you alluded to your meeting with Graham Souness prior to him indicating that he was going to be in Glasgow that summer. Let us know a little bit about how that fitting into that Souness revolution at Ibrox, and it was a revolution at that time. Let us know what that was like to be involved in that.
Well, I was the luckiest man in the world. I was at West Bromwich Albion with Ron Saunders, and Ron arrived. Johnny Giles was the manager of West Brom whenever I was there, and I loved Johnny and Norman Hunter and Nobby Stiles, and the great staff. I loved it. And then Ron Saunders came, and I just didn't get on with him.
Yeah.
It was my first game Spurs away. They beat us 4 or 5-0. It was his first game. He arrived in the middle of January. And Nobby Stiles was the caretaker manager for 6 games. And we were around second, third, bottom of the league. And Nobby was caretaker. And we win 2, drew 2, lost 2. So we'd settled things down. And Ron came. And he had us run up and down hills Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, it was horrific. And we got beat 5-0, and he says, after the game, he changed the whole team around. And after the game, he said, in all my days in the game, I have never seen a bunch of unprofessional, unfit players in all my life than you.
Wow.
So next week, he says, we'll be finding higher hills, and you'll be running up and down these hills every day, all week. And I said, excuse me, Gaffer, can I say something? I said, so I'm taking that as a slant as me as a professional. There's nothing wrong with my fitness, and there's nothing wrong with my professionalism. Are you telling me that the cause of the result today, and it's nothing to do with your team selection, where you made 6 changes after a team that went unbeaten 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats, and you changed the whole team, so it's nothing to do with your team selection. He was that close. He walked right up to me and he says, "Congratulations, you've just played your last game for West Bromwich Albion." And I never kicked another ball. So can you imagine? I was from January '85. Can you imagine? I was training with the kids. Whenever I get the phone call, came back from the World Cup in Mexico, I was training with the kids at West Brom pre-season, and Saunders calls me over and he says, "Come here, what? I know Bobby Williamson. I knew when he played for Rotherham and I like him." He says, "So he's up at Rangers at the minute." I says, "I know that." I said, "Well, he's coming down the road and you're going up the road, straight swap." Oh, I know who got the short straw, that one.
Try to keep the smile off your face.
Yeah.
All right, Gaffer. Well, if you insist.
I run off that pitch. I was only training the kids anyway. I run off that pitch, got my boots, got my gear, jumped in the car, drove back to Manchester, then drove to Scotland, and that was it. Signed on a Friday and we played Hibs on a Saturday. And I've been here ever since, so luckiest man in the world. But what he did then was, and I thought, that's what's happening here. And then I wasn't the first signing, not saying the first signing, but at that time he bought Terry Butcher, England captain, Chris Woods, England goalkeeper. They were all coming in. I thought this was going to be great. And that's just the way Graham was. Which I found him. He just wanted to surround himself with good players. And not good players, I mean, Butcher and Woods and all these boys. But, and good staff. When he got Walter in. I mean, that was his best signing, Walter.
Yeah.
There was no doubt about that. I love Walter. I love the two of them. Because Graham was like that. Graham he was full on, but Walter, you could go to Walter if things weren't going as planned on the pitch on a Saturday, but you couldn't agree. And the best thing that happened to me was whenever, I'm saying the best thing, but he bought Gary Stevens. And I said to Graham, I said, "That's a strange one. Do you not think he's too good for the reserves?" He says, "Aye." He said, "But would you like to take the reserves?" And it was my first insight into the side of the game.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did it because it's an opportunity to go and play somewhere else. I said, "No, I'm going to take the reserves and see if I can, with Big Peter McCloy and then John McGregor, and see if I like this side of the game." And I'm glad I did because it meant I was in the office every morning with Graham and I seen another side to him, which I didn't see as a player. I didn't see it as a player. But at 9 o'clock in the morning, I seen a side to him that I really got to know the man. I thought, great. But at 10:30, from 9 o'clock to 10:30, he could talk about anything topical, anything going on in the world. Anything, not just football, anything. Clever.
So that was something I was going to say to you. Obviously, when he came over in the 80s, I'm sure he was 33, 34, so young by any standard, younger than what I am now, certainly. Probably Thomas as well, although he'd probably try to pretend otherwise.
This filter's not working, guys.
How do you think Graham Souness managed to, because Walter Smith wasn't there from the outset, how do you think he managed to balance that so perfectly between being a player and I imagine wanting to play and being the gaffer as well, to all intents and purposes?
I'm sure Walter helped him a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure because maybe there's times whenever Graham would over the top.
Yeah.
And probably thought through his frustration and wanting to be successful immediately, and then getting impatient with players that probably weren't doing their job properly. And I think Walter just had a wee calming. I think so. But had a wee, Graham, you got to watch now. Just, I know you want to be successful yesterday, but in a long time now, just we got to, sort this out. And I went to Wraith Rovers, and I was just when I went to Wraith Rovers, player manager. And I'm only saying comparing it because it took me my first training session, and after the session, I went through them like a dose of salt about the standard. And Murray Chain, who's my assistant, said, "Jimmy, you can't talk to him like that. These are part-time players.
Yeah.
They've been up ladders and down holes all day. And then you're asking them to come in to do what you want, what you've done all your days. So you've got to bite your tongue and just..." And I think Walter might have had that sort of... He might have done. I don't know.
Aye.
And I don't think he did, because I never seen Graham Mello, right? Nothing to think about
it. Quite interested, Jimmy, just in terms of, so spoken about, the change in ownership, you've got Souness in there, you've got the new players coming in, you've got Maurice Johnston, all that kind of stuff happening in the club. What was it like to be at the heart of the club where, particularly in that period, Rangers were the only story in town, and it was a total revolution that was impacting every part of Scottish society and every part of Scottish football? What was it like to be living that day to day?
Well, it was great to see. Listen, the most important thing about football is playing with good players. Don't forget that I was bottom of the league with Sunderland. I was McCoy's fault. And I was bottom of the league with West Brom. and see, when you're bottom of the league, and I've got a wee bit of everything. And you're Northern Ireland, where you're trying to do your best, but you always feel up against it. And see, if all these different clubs you've been to, you really appreciate when you go to a club where you get good players. And not just the Butchers and the Woods and these boys and all the Saints. David Cooper's still and Coisty and all these boys. So they had a good blend of the ones he brought in, top players, and the ones who appreciated what was happening at the club. The ones that had been there for years and appreciated the change. Oh, listen, it's not going to be a struggle now. Hopefully we're going to win more games than lose. Hopefully we'll win things. Because the worst feeling in the world is having a career and not winning anything. So everybody must have thought, right, okay, you have a chance of doing something here. Because the quality on the pitch. And Graham would play himself, of course. Young lads were coming through, Gerrard, Derek Ferguson. Then you could see him for Ray Wilkins. And just everything was just, it was a joy to go into work every day, because you had the sense of humour of the Scotch boys, McCoy and Gerrard, and then you had the English boys.
I can imagine.
The gin and tonic boys and the pint of tenants boys,
Is it true that used to play them against each other in training? They play the Scottish team and the English team.
Oh, jeez, I was there. I mean, it was only recently I heard Ian John and Derek Ferguson talking about it. The day that Souness, I can't remember how it went, but Graham hit Derek, and then Durante hit Graham for hitting Derek, and then Graham hit Durante, and then Derek hit Souness for hitting Durante, and the two were ganging up, and he says, "Oh, come on, the two years, that'll do, lovely, And I played in that game. I remember that game vividly on a Friday morning, and they were just smacking into each other, and the respect that Walter Smith had from everybody. I'd never seen an assistant manager stop a training session before. And Walter just went, blew the whistle. And he went over, and whoever had the ball at their feet, he just stopped. He said, "Give us it." And he picked the ball up. He says, "Right, in you go. All these, get in. It's going too far. It's a Friday morning." Finished. And he stopped the training session, Walter, before it got out of hand. So. But they were, great days. You had a great blend, a great mix, and because all the young ones all respected Wilkins and Butcher and all, and they respected the job that the Scottish boys could do.
Jimmy, when Souness brought in Gary Stevens, and your game time maybe looked like it was going to be a bit more limited, and you moved to look after some of the reserves with John McGregor. Who were you looking after at that stage? Who was in the pool of guys at that point?
Oh, that was Big Nizzy and Gus McPherson and Gary McSwiggan, John Spencer.
Excellent.
All them kids. I loved it. We used to give them wee games and quizzes and all, and then wee John Spencer. I made the mistake one day. I think Coisty was injured, and there was only one striker. And I made the mistake of saying to Gary McSwiggan and John Spencer, "One of you's got a wee chance this week." Because them days used to play reserve games on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I said, "One of you's two have got a wee chance to play this week." And Walter said to me, "Jimmy, keep an eye on the two of them in case we use one on this weekend." And I made the mistake of telling them. So they were just all week, but the two of them were flying. And Walter says, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, if you want McSwiggan's pace, McSwiggan. If you want Spencer's brain, Spencer." Anyway, it's up to you. So I went in there Friday morning into the office, And the phone goes. I said, Jimmy, bring up them pair of boots. Bring him upstairs. And I brought a pair of boots up. And Andy Gray was sitting there. And he says, Jimmy, do you know Andy? I says, I played against him. How are you doing? All right. What are you doing here? The game's not tomorrow. He said, we've signed Andy till the end of the season. And such was the importance of having to win every game of football that we couldn't even take a chance.
Yeah.
A guy like Swigner, John Spencer. And that's the pressure, if you want to call it pressure, but it was a wee indication to me the pressure Graham and Walter in order to win games of football, to win leagues, to do things. You know, because Graham said, what's up with you on a Monday? What's up? We got beat 2 or 3-0 and all this carry on. And if we got beaten on Saturday, it was a wee bit. Walter was good at picking me up and all. But I was always concerned about the young lads. And it would turn out, I tell you what, I've got 3 or 4 cracking lads.
Yeah.
You'll be able to look forward to in the future. He said, and Graham said, Jimmy, I'll never be able to play 3 or 4 young lads in the team. If you get me 1 a year and be exceptional, like Durant and Cooper, they've got to be exceptional. I'll never get 3 or 4 kids in this team. Give me 1 a year and I'll be happy.
I remember a guy that was in the youth setup, reserve setup, who I thought at the time was going to be a real player, Sandy Robertson.
Oh, we Sandy, middle of the park.
Who he probably looked after.
Oh,
I remember him. I'm sure he scored I can't remember if it was a scissor kick, but he scored a great goal at Love Street against St Mirren. And I always thought, wow, this guy's going to be a real player. And he was almost lost to the system, Jimmy. His age almost played against him a little bit, and he largely disappeared, I think.
He did, and I wonder what happened to wee Sandy. I can't remember because only did it for a year.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call to go to Dunfermline from Big Leash, and I was only 32, and I always said, I want to play the game as long as I can. So I got a phone call from Leash. They just got promoted, and I went to see Graham and Walter, and Graham says, listen, play the game. If I hadn't got offered the Rangers job, I'd still be playing in Italy. So I went. So only had the lads for a year, and I went to continue playing football, which is what I wanted to do. And I went there for a year. So I lost track with it. All them, and not Swiggy, but Sandy Robertson and some of the other young lads at that time.
Yeah. Jimmy, I'm going to stick with you because I would suggest that we're going to come back to 2018 as to what happened then. But in 1994, you won the League Cup at Ibrox with Wraith Rovers. Must have been one of your proudest moments in the game, was it not?
Yeah, honestly. And for the reason being, like we were saying before, as a player, you want to play at the highest level you can.
Yeah.
Because it means you're playing with good players. And you're going to win more games than you lose, and you might win things. But at Wraith Rovers, who were part-time boys when I first arrived, slowly developed it into get some full-time lads. And for them lads to achieve, I went there in November 90. And for them to achieve what they achieved, they won the first division twice, got promoted, relegated, and promoted again. And they beat Celtic at the end of the League Cup final. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Of course, absolutely.
A lot of satisfaction because that's just, you know, if you're fortunate to play with good players, good luck. But see them boys do it, and we got a wee bit of help that day, and also we had special studs that only Rangers had.
You need to be careful, Jimmy. We live in a country where people will be asking for that trophy to be returned.
Absolutely, aye. They want that back. There's no two ways about it.
Oh, sure, you mean that.
There you go.
I had a wee bit of it. Yes, we did. I had that.
Brilliant.
And it was the last. That's the reason why we're in Europe. And people said, Jimmy, it must have been great at Ibrox and beating Celtic. It was. But the biggest thing was Wraith Rovers going to Europe. Because it was the last time the League Cup winners would represent Scotland in European football. That was the last time. It was never going to happen again. So that was the opportunity. And we did it, and we deserved it.
There was a lot of good players in the race team that day. Stevie Crawford, Mickey Cameron was involved in that day as well, I'm sure.
That was the midfield. Midfield was Stevie Crawford, Jason Dern, Mickey Cameron. That was a young midfield, and the swamped Celtic at the extra time with their fitness and their enthusiasm, and we still had the fortune of going to penalty kicks and fortunate to win it that way. But
what was it Scott Thompson who was in goal?
Yeah. And he's a goalkeeping coach over Ross County now, and Tom was my goalkeeper. I brought him from Forfar for about 40 grand or something. And he saved the penalty. He saved Paul McIntyre's penalty, yeah.
Oh, trust me, Jimmy, I absolutely remember that. You don't need to tell me twice about that one.
I got a rap at the door where I was straw hats and trumpets in the dressing room afterwards, and there was a rap on the door, and I was just standing back with my sister Martin Harvey, just enjoying and taking all in and watching them all celebrating, and there was a rap on the door. I had the home dressing room at Ibrox. Just here, congratulations on behalf of Rangers Football Club.
Nice one.
Half a dozen bottles of champagne.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Not a tap on the door from the team that you'd managed to beat in the final. No congratulations or well done.
Yeah. Tommy is God love him. Tommy Burns at the time, and
that's
Billy
nice.
Stark. No, Tommy was good. Yeah, that was a sore one for him.
Class size.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, I'm going to stick with you because we sort of fast forward from the days at Wraith Rovers to 2018. You already alluded to the fact that you were in a position at Falkirk, and you're approached by Rangers to come back to the club and the coaching staff initially. Let us know a little bit about how that happened and lead us up to that crazy afternoon at Easter Road, if you don't mind.
Well, I was at Falkirk and the phone went, and it was Stuart Robertson, and in Paul Hartley's office at Falkirk, it's down below. It's not a great reception, so I said I better take this, and I took it out in the middle of the pitch at Falkirk, and says, "Hi, Stuart," and I thought it was about Michael O'Neill, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
thought Michael's got it.
Okay.
He says, "Jimmy," he says, Graham's going to be manager till the end of the season, and we just want to know if you come in and join him. Great. Great for me.
I'm on my way.
Brilliant.
I'm outside.
Yeah. So I was great, and I drove in my first day. Big motor, can't even remember what it was, but I'm too old for a young motor. Like I had black wheels and black windies and all that. So big motor. My own parking space at the training ground, and I thought, this is just don't forget I was at Cowdenbeath 3 months before I was at Falkirk. I thought, this is great. And then I seen a car parked right outside the entrance where it shouldn't be parked. And I walked in and met all Graham and JJ and Colin Stewart and all the staff and all, so, and then the players down the treatment room and see the physios and the players. And then I just says, who owns that car? And they told me who owned it. I said, what's it doing there? That's where the ambulances come and fire brigades and all. He shouldn't be parking there. He says, but he parks there. And that was my first, does he? Oh, he does he? And nobody says nothing. No, that's where he parks. So I won't tell you who the player was. And it was my first wee sign of, the manager has to walk further to get into the front door than the player does. What the hell's that all about?
Yeah.
And then I just slowly think, but anyway, it was really enjoyable, and I enjoyed it. And unfortunately, what happened to Graham, that was a sore one because I got on great with him. He brings you in, and with JJ.
So how would they? If I can ask, you'd obviously come in. Graham's there to stabilise the ship. He brings in people like yourself to stabilise it after the Pedro era. Yeah. Probably the nicest way to say that. But I'm interested. Was there still a hangover from Pedro? Was there still a confusion about his system versus Graham's system, or was it just a case of let's get back to basics, lads? The squad should be good enough to win these games. Was that?
That was it. I mean, Graham and JJ were very thorough in their work, what they did in their training, and they'd sit down every morning at 8:30, then at 8 o'clock, breakfast, and sit down around the table at 8:30, what their approach was going to be for the day. So I don't know what it was like under Pedro. Apparently there was a lot of cones about the place, but nothing else happening. And I think Graham got the players on board. He got them on board, started picking up. I mean, we know what happened. I mean, the Celtic game's done, and that was horrific what happened in them games.
Yeah.
And it was really disappointing the way it worked out for him, But as for as for the coaching side of things, you just did what you had to do. I just love walking about and seeing people that may be a wee bit down or they're not putting in what they normally put into this training sessions and see what's wrong with them and do wee bits and pieces. But the bulk of it is that try and keep as much away from the manager's door as you can. I've always done it with Jimmy Calderwood and Kenny Shield or anywhere I've been. That's that's a bit that I like doing, and keeping things away from the manager if you can. If you can sort them out yourself with the player and the player's happy enough, and do it that way.
If you guys will indulge me, and Jimmy, maybe you can or can't answer this question, right? But from the outside, as fans, it looked as though there might have been an uptick in results and stuff, but maybe unfairly on Graham and the staff and stuff. It looked as though the players were picking and choosing when they kind of wanted to turn up and were kind of ruling the roost. So from your perspective, again, I know you need to kind of take a position on this, but was that the case? Because it looked like a pretty broken dressing room from the outside.
It wasn't always broken. It wasn't always. We had our moments. We had our moments when I've seen players and the arguments after games, and I've seen another side of 2 or 3 of them, and I thought, no, I don't like that, So, and it wasn't harmonious all the time. But, we know the games that done us in, the ones at Ibrox, whenever they were down to 10 men, we lost that one, you think, God, if we'd have won that, just loads and Edward pops up and scores. And there's loads of examples you think, geez, what a, but listen, if I had been good all the time, then what happened wouldn't have happened. But you can't, it's very difficult to keep players happy and contented all the time. That's a special gift that you've got to keep 25, 26, 28 players happy. It's very difficult, so it isn't. And some of them weren't happy, and so if anything went wrong, it just blew up. And then they got an opportunity to be critical. But Graham worked very hard at his job. He was very meticulous, and I thought he got on well with players.
I think from a personal point of view, the fact that Graham Murty is still at the club and in the position he is perfectly illustrates just how highly he is regarded within the walls at the training centre. I don't think there's any doubt about that. One thing, Jimmy, that struck me, you're quite clearly a proud Rangers man, and you're so happy to have played for the club in the manner that you did and be involved in the club as you have done. It must have been surprising for you to go in and see players that maybe weren't maintaining that sort of pride and tradition of being where they are and wearing what they wear every weekend, if you're with me.
Yeah, I know. But listen, it's very difficult because it's difficult to point the finger at somebody, but I'm looking at it and turning and saying, this is what should be done. If you're going to police a dressing room. Don't let people get away with things.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't, when it's not being policed properly and things get slack and people get casual, then that's it. You got to clamp down on that. You either do it from the top or you police a dressing room as players. And if that's not policed properly, then if you're not going to get on there, I had a player, listen, I used to get exasperated with them and turn around. I had a player say to me, what's the point? What's the point? Holy shit.
Just outrageous.
What's the point? That sort of thing. So, but I'm making it sound as always, it wasn't, we had our wee moments when things didn't go well. It was, the whole feeling just got to everybody, So, but anyway.
Speak to us about
mistakes.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Speak to us about the 5-each game at Easter Road.
Well, whenever
that's me I make myself comfortable in my seat as well. There, that's all right.
Oh dear. I mean, whenever it happened to Graham, and me and JJ got pulled 8:30 in the morning, got pulled in the office at the training ground, and Graham's gone. I says, no, because he came in and said, Cheerio, and I sat in there and said, I want you two to take over till the end of the season. And I said, well, let me phone Graham first. And I went out and phoned Graham. He says, that's all right, Jimmy. I said, the boss, that's all right, do what you have to do, you're all right. And So back in, I said, right, the thing was, yeah, we'll do it, but, you know, the two of us can't do it because somebody's got to be responsible, you know, for the press and you can pick the team jointly, but somebody's got to be responsible if you get gubbed and go and face the press afterwards, you know, or if things aren't going well. And so we had to take a decision. So I ended up doing it anyway, and that was great. And beat Kilmarnock, drew with Aberdeen, and then we'll go to Easter Road. And I thought I'd seen everything in football, everything. So I remember being there, and the Rangers supporters off to the right. I'm looking at the Rangers supporters. Don't know how many was it in the right-hand corner. We're 3 down after 20 minutes. And I said to JJ,
You're responsible, JJ. That's my phone going.
I said, JJ, get Bruno warmed up. He says, what? I said, tell Bruno to get out there and get warmed up. He says, he's a centre-half, Jimmy, we're 3 down. I says, I know that, but don't get Bruno on with the 6 down at half-time. We need another defender on there. So at 3-0, you've still got a chance. We've got to keep it at 3-0. So I'll never forget. Bruno gets up and he goes down, and he's down that way towards the Rangers supporters. And I can hear the Rangers supporters booing. They're booing. Bruno's getting warmed up. And JJ said, Jimmy, you're joking, aren't you? I said, JJ, we're going to do it. Even me, Jimmy Bell, he thinks he's Mourinho. He's saying to me, you can't bring on Bruno Elvis. I was getting it in both ears. You can't do that. You can't do that. So, you'll never believe it. I said, Bruno, come here. So when Bruno leaves the corner, as he's halfway up to the halfway line, we scored. I think Tab scored 3-1. We score again. Jordan has it 3-2. Now it's 3-2 and Bruno's at the halfway line. And JJ says, you're not bringing Bruno on now, we're back in the game. I says, he's going off. Bruno get their gear off. He gets his gear off. And I'm getting dogs abuse. The Rangers boys just think the supporters must be thinking, they're back in the game, you can't bring on a centre. Well, Bruno gets his gear off. We get a free kick. There's my opportunity. Bruno goes on. Sean Goss comes off. Bruno hits a free kick. 3-8. I've gone to be the best manager in the world. I'm Mourinho and Alec Ferguson all wrapped up in one. It's 3-8. Half time, we're going to the dressing room. Listen, lads, we're going to win this game. Simply because their defence is worse than ours. Simple as that.
Fair play.
We'll go 5-3 up. The Rangers, like I said, the Rangers supporters are so confused. They're singing a sash to the tune of Sunshine on Leaf. They don't know what's going on. They've come from 3 down after 20 minutes to 5-3 up.
I looked up after 20 minutes, Jimmy, and thought you'd only picked half a team. Just the defence.
Well, after we scored after we scored the 5th one, they went up a park and made it 5-4. If it had just held on for a wee 5-4, and then they got the 5-8. Me Neil's doing his airplane, and so he was, and that was my last game. And after the game, spoke to Mark Allen. Mark says, you know, this is going to be happening, and I says, all right, it's no problem. Then just you know, and then that was it. He just said, listen, there's a chance Stevie's coming in. And
so was that when you kind of heard when Steven Gerrard's name was largely mentioned as being the next manager? Yeah.
Well, it was a Sunday, and then there was a meeting at the training ground Monday morning, and I just said to Mark at Easter Road in some cupboard or something. I found a wee cupboard with broomsticks and flipping mops and buckets and all this. Mark says, Jimmy, you can't do it. We're in a cupboard. I says, I know, Mark, we're all right. You're all right. And he was great about it. He says, listen, this is what's happening. But you know, just see how things are whenever we come in and see if there's anything. It's not going to happen for me. You're all right. But thanks for the opportunity. It's great. I really enjoyed it. And thanks very much, you know. So That was it. Then I didn't.
Sorry, Jimmy, I was going to ask, did you have any, after that, did you have any interaction with Steven Gerrard, the squad or anything like that?
No. That was it. Listen, the first time I was there for 6 months, I thought I wouldn't be back. I went back in '86, winning cups and leagues, great. And then you get an opportunity to take the reserves, and you get an opportunity to manage them for 3 games. Listen, died and gone to heaven, mate. It's great.
Live the dream, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Although, as I said earlier off camera, it's the one game where I've ever managed to get drunk and then the game sobered me up. Long may that 5 each game live in the memory, I'll tell you. And I hope you put Jimmy Bell in his place when Bruno...
He's learned the half lesson there.
Jimmy took a credit for bringing Bruno on in the end.
Listen, Jimmy Nicholl, I could absolutely speak to you forever. It's been fantastic having you on. I really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you.
No problem, lads. All the best. Good luck to you.
I should say that over the coming week, this Ibrox is really happy to be rolling out the women's football podcast. So we will be joined, will be joined by Graham Falk, Courtney McKenzie, and we can now reveal joining us from the women's club, Nicola Docherty joins us this week as well. She will get together with us and we will speak all things about the women's pod, and we're really, really looking forward to it. Thanks to the club for putting it on and supporting us. We look forward to rolling that out this week. Stay tuned for that. Thomas, he's gone. It was great to have him on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You could have spoke to him for hours and I think he would gladly have done it.
Listen, yeah, absolutely. More so than I think any other previous pods. I could have sat here all night and listened to Jimmy. Absolutely amazing guest and an absolutely lovely guy on and off camera. Has to be said, a true gent. Amazing.
We will do it all again next week. Good luck to Rangers. We didn't even speak about the game that they have on Wednesday, of course, when we travel to Livingston, who will be a bit flat after the weekend, I would imagine. However, we'll have a go on that dodgy surface. You and I will get together again next week where we've got another special guest, so we look forward to that. Thanks for your time tonight. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
Let your fear out. Let your fear out.
You're listening to This Is Ibrox, your Rangers podcast, brought to you by Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for all your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. Contact them on 01453 88 7179 or via email hello@hhhmortgages.com.